Welcome to Karen's Conversations number 45. Today I have the great pleasure of talking to Ram Kumar, and without any other further ado, I'm going to throw to Ram to introduce yourself. Hello, welcome.
Hello, Karen. Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me here. Thanks for accepting my own invitation. My name is Ram Kumar. I'm from the city of Bangalore in India. I'm 32 years old, and I'm working with the entity global team as a service architect. Apart from my IT work, I'm very much interested to do an encouragement session for students or some trainings that it will help for them to set up their future life. So these are my other activities in the weekends apart from my main work. And when I see your sessions in LinkedIn, I really feel great about your topics, your energy, and the flow of information which is always available over there in your content. And that is the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you. And thanks for setting it up for today. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, Ram, this is a bit of a reversed engineered, no, not engineered, but I usually reach out to people and say, oh, would you like to join me on a current conversation? And it was a great surprise and pleasure when you reached out and said, I'd like to have a conversation with you. So we had a wide range of topics and we narrowed it down to two. So before we get into each of those, I'd like to ask you, why did you pick or include these two topics that are work-life balance and motivation? So why were they important ones you wanted to discuss?
Yes, good question, Karen. Thanks for starting with that question. As you can realize, many people are asking me, apart from technical and work-related questions, they ask me some personal stuff. Like the main thing, once we get introduced and when we become friends, the first things they ask is, I have so many issues in my life, how to do this, how to do that, how I should go ahead. Sometimes when I myself face those issues, I tend to talk to a senior who is very well experienced and then see how I could be able to address that situation. So again, finding motivation is related to work-life balance, as you would know, because one day, every day is not the same day, but how we will be able to cope up with that? Where will I find motivation? If I open my WhatsApp status, it is filled with motivational quotes. If I open my Facebook or Twitter or any other social media, what is the most shared content? Motivational quotes are the most shared content. By sharing a pic or seeing a video, will you get motivated? That's the kind of question which I ask myself. And I have this lucky chance of going to schools or colleges through a training center which does a social work. It's not for money I do. In the weekends, I used to go to training centers, talk to the younger people, see how their life is set up, give them some life training. And the most important thing which I feel so happy about is that when I got into the IT industry, there was nobody to guide me. All I did was I do the mistakes, I fall down, and then I get up, clean myself, and then go forward. And then when I reached the stage where I could be able to show some guidance to the people, I wanted to make sure that how much ever young people whom I can be able to train in my free time, that happened. So these are the thought processes which I had as the reasons for coming to you. Because when I saw your content, I thought this is the right platform for me to share my views with Karen so that she can take it to a much wider audience.
Absolutely. I'm glad we made it happen. So let's talk about work-life balance. It's an important topic for all of us now because we're switched on 24/7. So how do we keep? And I always debate this in myself. Is that life is the umbrella, and there's work, and there's stuff outside work, but it's all still life. So I sort of debate but we all still say the same work-life balance. So that's fine. We know what we mean. So how do you manage that overlap of your professional life at work and the personal life outside of work?
Okay. Simple answer. Many people will say, see work as work and see life as life, keep both the things separate. I always keep saying that, your professional life is not something which is out of your personal life. It's like a part of your life. You have two hands. One hand is your personal life, one hand is your professional life, and both are part of your body. It's not like something is separate, totally, entirely not related to it. No. how you behave personally really affects how you behave professionally. If you are a good guy in your personal life, 95% chances or 99% chances psychologically that you will be a good guy in your work as well. Because your personal habits are the ones which will be reflected in your workplace and vice versa, right? Sometimes what we do in terms of public behavior, so we tend to show ourselves as a very good person in our workplaces. Once we come home, the face changes. I say, no, I can't be able to behave the same way how I behave in office. So the standardization of behavior. Now, I'm pretty much sure, I'll take an example from you. If I come and meet you personally, and if I have a cup of tea or coffee with you, you will behave the same way which you are behaving right now.
Yep.
That's the balance. That's the mental peacefulness. That's the balance which you have in order to cope up with both your personal life and your professional life. So that's the balance which I would like people to have. Psychological balance, character-wise balance, approach-wise balance, where you take a deed as a deed, a task as a task, be it personal or professional, it doesn't matter. That is my view.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you'll have seen, Ram, I write a lot about, being your authentic self. And if you are going into the work environment with a mask and trying to be something different, and then you go home and maybe do the same or take the mask off, that's very exhausting and very
exhausting. Exactly.
So I agree. You need to be your authentic self in both spaces, for your own mental well. And you posed a good question about moral values and work ethics. And there's been a lot of conversation on LinkedIn about, bullying and harassment in the workplace and whether you speak up or not, and do you just get out, and toxic cultures. So, it's probably, so we do have our own moral values and behaviors. What if, so your question was, how do you adhere to those? So how do you balance that with your own personal values and what's happening in the workplace, the ethics of the work?
Very good question. So the moral values. So when we talk about morality, the views differ from person to person. Okay, so it might be dependent upon the geography of the place where I live in. It might be dependent upon the situation of my life. It might be dependent upon the external factors, how people see me, how people judge me. Most of the times we tend to worry about what others think rather than what is necessary at that point of time. Right? When you go to workplace, what do you feel? People should say I'm easy to work with. People should say I'm talented. My boss should appreciate me. Obviously, absolutely. Everybody expects their boss to appreciate you. Then otherwise, we will not be improving the work, because that's the need of the work. That's not something which is your character assessment, right? Right. When you buy a product in a supermarket, you expect it to be good because it is available in a market, in a stored place where it is supposed to be good. For that only you're paying money. Same way, when your company is paying you money, your manager expects you to do his work and do the work in a much better way, so that he can take you to the next stage of the career. That is not your character. That is not your assessment of your character. That's an expectation. That's a job expectation. That's totally different from what is your character assessment, right? So people fail to understand what is the moral value versus what is needed in work. So a manager or a HR telling you that I need this or I need that, that's the work-related need. It's not your character assessment. That's one point which we need to identify. And morality, as you were rightly asking, how moral values are determined. How much true are we in finishing the task which we've taken? Okay, sometimes we tend to do the task without any interest, just for the fact that I need to do it. I tend to do it. Moral-wise, it is totally wrong. If we are not comfortable with a particular deal, be it personal life or professional life, we should be able to express it clearly. And this is not fitting for me, and I can't be able to provide my 100% efforts to it. Please let somebody else take over. So you're telling that to wife, telling that to the kids, telling that to the parents, or telling that to the manager, all are one and the same thing. But if you feel that, saying that in home is okay, but saying that in office will hurt feelings, no, then you are not being true to your office also. If you feel that, you have to openly say it.
Mm.
Moral values are always determined by how much of positive impact the deed leaves after it is being done. That is my personal humble do's and Karen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if it's not right, you need to speak out, and you should be able to do that with no fear of repercussion. But if there is, what I say to people, it's a tough question, because you ask yourself. Some people say it's a really bad environment, but I love what I do. And I said, well, that's a balance you have to come to terms with. How much is that bad environment having an adverse impact on your mental well-being, as opposed to you like what you're doing? Could you do the same thing somewhere else, which might be a choice you have to make? And someone was saying on LinkedIn recently that she had absolutely done that. She'd walked out of an organization. She loved the job, but that she just couldn't stand because of the way the organization behaved. And she got a call from another person in the organization a week or so later and said, thank you so much for taking that action. You gave me the courage to do the same. So we can have impact. So let's talk a bit about leadership. So how do you take charge of situations in a leadership role or a supporting role? Again, work and outside.
Leadership role and supporting role, many people think that it's totally different. That, when I take a leadership role, I have to be at the front. When I take a supporting role, I have to be, it's okay even if I'm a bit at the back. No, both the roles require front end operation. You need to keep yourself at the front end on both the sides. But when you talk about leadership, it's about consistency in your behavior. They'll say, okay, what's the density of a coffee based on the decoction liquid which we create? Then the density of the coffee is maintained only when the liquid is dense across all the region, which means I should say from the filter till the cup, the density must be the same level. If you add more water to the filter, then the result will not be what you expect. Same way, if you are playing a supporting role, you are filtered to have a leadership role, right? The next level. So when you are doing a supporting role, many people tend to think that, no, I don't need to take the front end here. I don't need to play a full-fledged role here. I don't need to put my 100%. No. Both the roles require 100%, because if you are a good support team player, then you are a good leader. And that is what many people will say, a leader must be a team player first, then he automatically becomes a leader. Then they ask me, no, how it is possible? A team player is a mediocre guy, one who does menial jobs, one who does not, think about the next level. No, these are all the what do you call? These are all the fences which you put for yourself. It's not the same way. See, if there is more competition, that gives you a chance to excel more.
Yeah.
If there is less competition, that gives you a chance to improve in a faster way, right? So not everyone is blessed with this art of public behavior or work-life balance or leadership, but everybody is blessed with the talent of learning. Humans are like, there is no human in this world who can say that I cannot be able to do this. That's a fact, right? Because whenever I feel demotivated, there is one video which I would like to point it out to you, apart from the technical stuff. I watch that video and I get myself motivated. In 1998 in USA, in the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire program, there was a first millionaire. His name is John Carpenter, not the famous director. This is another John Carpenter who worked in the income tax services of US. Now, if you watch the last question, the 14th question of his video, the $1 million winning video, he did not use any lifelines up until that point. All the lifelines were intact for the 14th question, which was the $1 million question. And then once the question was asked, it was about which US president appeared in the show laughing. That was the question. The answer is Richard Nixon, out of the 4 options. Now, when the question was asked by the host, this John Carpenter immediately thinks about it, and then he says, I'm going to want to use the lifeline. So what lifeline you want to use? I want to use the phone a friend. Then to whom you want to call, wants to call his dad. And then the call goes to the dad. Okay. And then he says, you only have 30 seconds on all the rules, he says. And then he picks up the phone and talks to dad. He says, Dad, I did not call you to get help from you in answering the question. I just called you to say that I won $1 million. Which means he knows the answer and he was so confident. And then he answered the question that it is Richard Nixon who appeared in the show laughing. And then by seeing his confidence, the host was like speechless. I mean, what a spellbinding way of expressing your confidence. Because when you know something 100%, that is the confidence you will have. And then he won the $1 million. That was the right answer. When people were absolutely dumbfounded and astonished to see the way how he answered that question. So whenever I feel down, I open up that video. It's not overconfidence. It's not boasting. It's the way that you know something 100% so truly that you can express it in such a confident way. So whenever there is a question of leadership, whenever there is a question of motivation, whenever there is a question of, not all the resources available, I always feel that it is our effort. If you give 100%, then you don't worry about your result, because the rest of the things will take care of themselves, because some things might be in your control, might not be in your control. You worry about things only which are in your control and just put 100%. And the rest of the things will take care of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Ram. I mean, and one of the things I always say is, leadership doesn't come with a title or a position. Absolutely. Anyone in an organization can lead, and all leaders need to be followers as well. So anyone can step up and take the lead if they wish to. And as leaders in an organization, as those who do have teams, one of their roles to me should be identifying those leadership capabilities and coaching and nurturing them and allowing those people to use those things that they're demonstrating to advantage. So what about being a role model in work-life balance? So if someone came to you, Ram, and said, look, I'm really struggling with this work and life and the two are getting in the way and I don't think I've got a balance, how would you act as a role model for that person?
Again, if I talk about role models are people who have done something right, which we are doing something wrong. That's how I see a role model. Okay, role models are just, you can yourself be a role model to you. How? Something which you've done right in the past, you might be doing it wrong today. So you refer your older past and see where you have done right in the past and then come back and correct it. Role models are like, they are like God. They are available everywhere. You just need to open your eyes and see where I can be able to find the role model for me today. It might be a person who is walking in the road. It might be a person who belongs to your friends group or family. And if somebody comes and asks me, where can I find my role model? That's the question. So I say, find within yourself. That's the best answer which I can give you. Or if you want to search outside, search for someone who had actually done that work in a commanding way and not trying to boast about it. For example, if someone comes to me and says, I'm not finding motivation, where I can find some motivational video or a speech, or I can be able to go and express out myself. And I say, I could easily suggest you a video. Okay, go and see Karen's presentations in LinkedIn. So, because why I suggest Karen's presentation? Because I know that, okay, there is someone who is doing this for a longer period of time with a set of values. Same way, I would suggest them to a person who had already succeeded in doing things with a set of value. For me, value, as you rightly said in the previous questions, morality and values are very important. So someone who maintains that, I will identify such kind of person and I will suggest that person to the questionnaire as a role model. That is the second option. First option, try to find the role model within yourself, or within your environment, within your culture, right? Don't try to look for a role model outside. If you still need, then these are the set of people who can be able to help you, who has a lot of values, who has a lot of morality related values, and they have a proven track record over the period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people, when you think about it, if people are looking for a role model, they already have some sort of idea of what behaviors they want someone else to demonstrate because of the behaviors that they want. And so they can identify what the behaviors they want in themselves, whether it's increased leadership capability, delegation, empowerment, communication, whatever. So they've already identified what it is they want to be like, and then they identify the person that they can try and emulate. But that only then has an outcome if they actually take on board what they're seeing and adopt it themselves. So it's a two-way street both ways.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So let's explore motivation. We've touched on it a bit. So what about, the self-motivation, and then the sort of motivation as a group of people or a team? So what to you is self-motivation? You've talked a little bit about the things you do.
Yeah. So for me, self-motivation is an entity where I am able to make myself happy. Okay, self-motivation is something where I can make myself happy in terms of the task which I'm going to do, right? How can I find motivation? If I am in a top class mental peace, okay, before doing any task, that itself is required amount of motivation for me. Okay, so I don't need to look for a separate motivation to do the task. You just go there and execute it. If you think more about it, the more you think, the more problems you will have. Just don't think about it. You keep your mental fortress in such a way that it is so peaceful and calm. And I think about, like, in psychology. So, okay, just to give you a slight information about my psychological searchings, is that I want to do a PhD in psychology some point of time, not now, probably in the next 5-6 years of the course of time. So I tend to read a lot of psychological books, and I used to chat with people who know psychology, and then to see how we can do certain experiments and all that. So one of such things which I used to always hear about from the psychological forum is that you have a happy place in your mind. This is something which you would have heard a lot, right? So this happy place, how it is being determined. Okay, think about a place where you can go. Now with the introduction of virtual reality in the IT industry, trust me, you would have seen a news before 1 or 2 days where your lost relatives, like a father or a mother or a son, can be brought back in the virtual world. For people who are suffering from personal loss, that person themselves are being brought back by virtual reality, and they are allowed to spend time with them how much ever they want. So you are trying to negate the loss of the personal loss of a person with technology. That's how we are thinking ahead in terms of future, in terms of finding motivation. So I always think about this happy place. Okay, so how I can be able to make the present place as my happy place, make this present task as my happy place, right? How would I do? If I'm doing this for pleasure, how will I do? That's the first question which I will ask myself. If I'm doing it for pleasure, underline that word. So that's how I ask the question. If I'm doing it for pleasure, how perfectly will I do? Because the human tendency, according to psychology, is that when you plan for pleasure, you will book the best hotel, you will book the best travel, you will have the best set of facilities made available for you. That's how I will look at it. If I'm doing it for pleasure, how will I do it? That's the mindset which I will go to make motivated, to make myself motivated.
I love that. I love that idea. Absolutely. It's so true. And what about group motivation? So that's great.
Yeah.
How does that work across a group?
Yeah. Okay, so group motivation is something which is very tough to achieve. I mean, let's be honest about it. You can talk in front of a group with a mic for a long period of time, but we should be able to see the reality. The reality is, it is very tough to hold the attention of a group. Whenever I speak in public, in front of students, or in even work related, one issue which I feel is that we might have that fire and passion to share everything what we know, the group, but the group might not be interested in the same, right? They might be interested only till a particular point. After that, it is very tough to keep everybody's attention. So group motivation is something which is tough to achieve. Having said that, that is a very easy way of achieving the group motivation. How? So the collective idea of a group, I mean, why we are having a group is that we are going to have a collective target. Now, what target it is? So we have to reiterate that target in a way that it is answering their own, plus points. Like, for example, in industry terminology, we call it as KPIs, key performance indicators, right? In life, some of them would be having a certain KPI. Like, for example, I want to earn money, I want to lead a luxurious life, I want to do this, I want to do that. These are their KPIs.
Yeah.
We need to find with that task. Okay, we are going to plan for a new building. If that is the task given to me, and if I'm trying to motivate the group to build that new building, I need to see what are all the advantages which this group will get, each of them individually and collectively as a group they will get by building that building, so that I can assign responsibilities related to the construction process to that group. So that's what I will be seeing. Okay, what is your KPI with regards to this? What is your personal, look forward thing with regards to this? Then I will put that as a group KPI. Then you will be able to react to it, right? So finding out what are a person's internal motivation. What is a person's internal motivation to join that group? That is what I will set as a group motivation factor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding what I say about what's in it for me. I need to address what's in it for me for every member of my team, so they are inspired and motivated to, whether that's I'm learning a new skill, or I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone to do something, or, even if this is going to look really good on the resume, just whatever it might be, or I'm actually building myself a better office. Yeah. So what's in it?
Your own happy place.
Yeah, my happy place.
So I find my own happy place, and then I find your own happy place.
Absolutely. So you talked about when we talk about motivation, change is now happening faster and faster to us. Yep. And we're all getting pushed outside our comfort zone a little bit more every day. So how do we mitigate that stress that brings? And you mentioned something called confidence points. So explain what that means.
Yeah. So, there are 2 points to it. Part A of the answer, I'll answer about stress, and part B, I'll answer about, confidence points. Okay. Part A is that stress is something where we don't really need to have, because you have stress for so many reasons. So what are those reasons? Either it might be physical. Okay. So you tend to have that stress in your body by nature. So you can ask me a question: is stress physical by nature sometimes? Yes, definitely. Because some people will be having issues with their body pressure. Okay, and some people would be having issues with keeping their mental strength and physical strength not in sync, and then ending up getting stressed. So physically, yes, getting stress is possible. Okay, and mentally, how we are inviting stress. So if somebody is saying that I am having stress, I will always say, yeah, we are inviting stress. Okay, how we are inviting it? If you are in a tough situation, the first thing which is required to be done is that approach it like a professional situation. Approach it with the intention of putting a full stop to it right now. You can look for a permanent solution later. Okay, let's take an example of an utensil which is leaking. Will you immediately run for buying a new utensil, or will you be interested in locking that leak for the moment? That's a question which I will ask. Or if a pipe is leaking, water is leaking, water is getting wasted, what will you do? You will immediately call a plumber and wait till the guy comes to fix or you will fix the leakage temporarily and then call the guy for a permanent fixture. So whenever there is a stressful situation, I always, be it personal or professional, I always would like to approach it personally, that first let me try to do what is essential, what is needed at that point of time to stop the damage from spreading.
Yeah.
Let's take the coronavirus example. If coronavirus is spreading, government will not be spending their entire time in finding a permanent medicine to it. First, they'll try to stop the spread of the virus, quarantine it, and then you go work on the other things. That's the thing which I would like to do when there is a stressful situation. So again, keeping your mind sharply on the task and not worrying about the results, though it is sometimes very much personal. I'll not be, worrying about the results.
Mm-hmm.
And part B of the question can you repeat the part B of the question? One point was
the confidence points.
Yeah, confidence points. Okay, yeah. So confidence points, how would I see? Is that it's not, my confidence is not just dependent upon the positive result of my action. It's not just I'll be looking for success. What I'll be looking is that, am I satisfied with the amount of effort which I put in? Am I feeling that I've done the best job here? And then I go to my wife and I ask, do you feel that I've done my best here? That's an external peer-to-peer assessment. Because my wife knows me very much better. She knows me very deeply, and she is a better judge, both personally and professionally. So I ask her, do you feel that I have put my 100% here? When they also say yes, and when you also feel yes, that means that you've done your best. You don't need to worry about this. That is my confidence point. And whenever I do my work, I say, okay, I'm not going there to satisfy person A or person B, because that is expected out of you. If they are paying you, or if they are calling you, or if you are getting benefited from it in one way or the other, you are expected to satisfy a set of people. So that is not your motivation. That is not your confidence. You try to leave a positive impact over there. So I always say, how is success measured? See, everybody is doing n number of things in their daily lives. And at what point they are forgotten? The point when you are forgotten is when there is no impact of your action. And that impact should be positive, it should not be negative. Your name is written in history only when the positive impact of your deeds are there up to a certain point.
Absolutely.
That is how I find my confidence point.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's the feedback and positive reinforcement, which is so important. So we're just coming up to our time, Ram. So I just want to wrap. We've talked a little bit about motivation in groups and finding people's happy place for them. Did you want to explore any more, talk any more about how motivation and leadership intersect?
Okay. Motivational leadership, many people find themselves attending a motivational speech about, this is my wife who is just passing away. Hi.
Hi.
Just say hi to Karen. This is my wife, Manasa, and she is my motivational point.
Awesome.
Bye. Thank you, Manasa. Bye. Yeah. Bye-bye. So, so the last part of it, where will I find, find the motivational leadership? Okay, many people tend to attend these sessions of motivation. Now, I don't blame them, because they need somebody to show them the way of life and show them, okay, something which I feel so sad, because many people are not open to open their mouths and ask for help. Okay, I have a gap or a void to fill in. So a person like Karen can come and fill up that void for me and guide me in a right place. And that is why they come to motivational speakers, right? Not everybody is ready to open up. So they see a person, then they say, okay, this person is having some quality which I have, and then they go and open up to that person, right? So for me, a motivational leadership should be something where the leader should be ready to listen to everybody. And leader should be someone who can be able to, cultivate trust. Trust is very, very important. As you would have known, you as a motivational speaker would be loving to have trust from your audience, and you have trust on me. That's why we are having this meeting, right? So trust is very important. Second thing, a motivational leader should always stand by example, by their actions, right?
Absolutely.
How much ever tough it is, you do it by action, people will follow you, right? Why Elon Musk is considered as a great guy in technology today, even though his company is sometimes volatile in terms of business market performance. Why is he considered as a pioneer? Because he's following up his words with his actions, right? I'm creating my own space company. I mean, when you say that before 15 years, people would laugh at you, right?
Yeah.
I can create a rocket which can go to space and come back to the Earth from where it was launched. Again, people will laugh at you, but he made it possible.
Yep.
Right? So that's the motivational leadership. If you want to motivate someone, and if you are promising something, do it. Don't be like a politician. Be like a technician.
Yeah. Don't say it and then don't do it. Say it and then
absolutely.
Absolutely. Awesome. Ram, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you again for reaching out to me.
Thank you.
It's been a great session. And I'm sure there's lots of, well, I know there's lots of takeaways people are going to get from that. So thank you.
Absolutely. I really thank you for providing me a chance to share my views and taking this to a wider set of audience. And, you know, apart from what I do in my company, you know, legal reasons are there that, you know, you should not be working on something where it is going to give you monetary benefits. This one is not for a monetary benefit. This one is the personal benefit of your mind, of your knowledge. When you share your knowledge, you get so much of happiness and pleasure. And there is no amount of monetary benefit which can be able to equal that. And that is the reason why we are having this session. And it's an absolute pleasure, honor, and a great time spent along with you, Karen. Thank you so very much. And I'm doing namaste to you in Indian style. Thank you very much for having me here. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and look forward for more such sessions in the future. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you, Ram.